Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's Volsta, and today I thought we'd talk about the new, G5 Cav. Ever since they've come out, a lot of people have asked me, hey, do I think they're good? Should I use them, and how should I use them? And my answer is really kind of unchanged since the beginning. I think these two are very strong paired together, but they have an obvious weakness, and I've really kind of had to do a lot of thinking, a lot of theory crafting to figure out a way around their weakness. And so I thought I'd talk through that today. Okay, and what's their weakness? It's very obvious. Both of these guys are very slow. For me, cav speed's very important. I like to synchronize my marches, particularly with my cav marches, because I'm often far away from like friendly lines, other troops, and I want these guys all to stay together. I think that is very important. And look, I always say movement speed, it's sort of a, your mileage may vary. It's a personal preference kind of issue. I want my cav moving fast, and for these guys with no movement skills at all, and no trees that really help the movement speed tree a lot. I had to really struggle to figure out ways to make these guys work. Okay, so let's talk through these guys. The first thing I want to talk through is, do you need to pair these guys together? And the answer is their internal synergy is okay, but it's not overwhelming. The main internal synergy they have is this skill right here, Ancient Vows, which basically means anytime you do hero skill damage, you have a chance to gain a Frost Pack mark. And the reason that's really good with Freya is Freya does a lot of skill damage. Her rage skill essentially does skill damage 4 times per cycle. And then she can also do a little additional skill damage with her third skill here, Frenzied Blade. So these two skills really do help Agnar, power his Ancient Vow skills. So that is good. You do want to pair them together. I have found it's not so overwhelming that you necessarily have to pair them together. If they could move fast, I'd probably put them together. But since they can't, breaking these two up, it's not a big deal to me. The only thing I want to talk about in terms of their internal synergy is that Freya's third skill here wants to do skill damage a lot of times, right? That's really good with her skills. Obviously, she's going to have that. Agnar's pretty good with that, right? Because Agnar goes off twice per rage cycle, so that's better than average. He can also do skill damage with his charge here. That is good, but it's not that essential. I found that like Freya's, third skill, it's mostly powered by herself, and then, most other heroes can help her out as well as that. So, like I said, these two have some good internal synergy, but I don't think it's absolutely required to pair them together. I do want to talk through a couple of other things in terms of like when we make the decision whether we want to keep them together or break them apart. And that's to look at their full package here. And we'll start with the war pet here, the Bullion Beast. As you might remember, the Bullion Beast, it has this bonus skill damage that goes off whenever you deal skill damage with your innate skills or you inflict a control effect with your innate skills. So I think this thing, it's really designed to be paired with Freya, because Freya is going to hit, 4 times per rage cycle at least, and also inflict a control effect, and also sometimes do, cowardice and additional skill damage here. So Freya is really good with the Bullion Beast. Again, Agnar's okay with it. Agnar hits twice, so that's okay. And when he charges, he inflicts Airborne, which is a control effect, so you can get an additional, bonus damage with the Bullion Beast here. It's not nearly as good as Freya, right? So if you have one good Bullion Beast, make sure you put it with whatever your Freya March is. Okay. The other thing is the artifact here. Obviously, I don't care about the Kingslayer. I am looking for, here we go, Winter's Edge. Okay. And Winter's Edge, whatever, the main effect's strong, a good bit of skill damage, and also roots the target. And when the roots clear, it does AoE damage and inflicts a movement speed loss. So I think this is a good artifact, and I intend to use it. The one thing I want to point out here is an additional effect, inflicting a Frostpack mark, which both allows you to ignore defense and do some additional damage to the enemy. The additional damage is only once every minute and a half. Not that big of a deal, honestly. But the defense ignore, that can occur like basically anytime you get the Frostpack mark. And obviously only Agnar's the guy that gets the Frostpack mark. So if you have this artifact and you have it built out, you want to make sure whatever march has Agnar gets that artifact. Okay. So I mentioned they don't have any skills that give them a movement speed. The other issue is they don't have like the trees that are good for the movement speed trees. And I'll just use Emrys as an example here. Obviously, he's been in the game since it started. Emrys has got a lot of great movement speed. The Cav tree's got 15% right at the start, which is awesome. 15% movement for only, 5 talent points is a good deal. The problem with Cav tree is there's no other movement speed anywhere else in the Cav tree. He's got the mobility tree, which you can see I've only gone a little bit into. And then you can also pick up additional 20 points from the PvP tree, right? So very strong. And if you want to go down the mobility tree, you can get an additional 5 points here. The problem with someone like Agnar is he's got the skills tree, and the skills tree is very strong, particularly for Cav like him, but it has no movement speed anywhere in it. So you can get 15 points from, the Cav tree, nothing else there. You can also go up the PvP tree, pick up 10 points here, and if you go further in, pick up 10 points there. So at best, you can get 41 points for someone like Agnar. And it's basically the same story with Freya. Now, I have her built out for a rally march here, and if you're building her out for a rally, you absolutely do not want to put any points into movement speed other than what you have to. But if you do go for movement speed, obviously you can get the 6 points here, 15 points in the Cav tree. Control's got 10 points right at the start, but that's it. So now we're up to 31. You can go up the rally tree. There's movement speed right here, so you can get to 41, and it's not terrible, right? Even though it's in the rally tree, it works with an open field march. But again, that's the best you can possibly do with Freya. So with both these two heroes, you're looking at 41% movement speed tops, because neither of them has a skill that boosts movement speed, okay? Okay, so when it comes to that, I think there's basically 4 koas you can do in terms of, using these guys and solving the problem of their movement speed. And 2 of them are sort of throwaway koas to me, because the throwaway koa ones, just don't use them. I don't want to do that because they are very strong. I have invested in them. Obviously, if you haven't invested in them, it's not a problem you have, all right? The second koa is to not synchronize your movement speed. I don't like doing that, particularly with Cav marches. Mass is very important for Cav. You want your Cav heroes generally to be, clumped together, because if they get separated, one of them will get cut off and taken out very quickly. So for me, it is very important to synchronize my Cav marches. So with that in mind, I came up with 2 different solutions, and we'll take a look at them now. The first solution is the heavy-hitting slow solution, right? And basically what I've done here is I've paired all of the the generation Cav heroes together, so G1 with G1, G2 with G2, etc. These are all synchronized at 31% movement speed, and they all, in this build, they all like basically hit as hard as they can, right? So if they have the skills tree is very strong, they're all using the skills tree, right? So Agnar and Urag and Bakshi and Li Shanyan, they're all using the skills tree in this hypothetical build. Just a couple things to note here. You'll notice that I've swapped out the G3 and the G4 artifacts. The reason is that Lunaris here, if you have it equipped with Nea, gives her a march speed boost every time she's camouflaged. And like I said, I don't want her moving faster than everyone. I want everyone moving the same speed. And so I swapped these 2 out. Look, there's lots of options here. You could simply not use Lunaris, but I haven't maxed out Exemplars, so I kind of want to use it. That's basically how I've equipped these guys out. Other than that, they all have like the pet that's associated with their generation of Cav. These all do very well. Obviously, the problem is they don't move quick. If you're an alliance that can like flood the battlefield, that can dominate the battlefield with Cav, this probably is a good build for you, because you can just sort of move with the swarm, and you don't need to be fast, you don't need to get away with anything, and you're just looking to overwhelm the battlefield. Okay, so the other option is the fast Cav build, and this is my fast Cav build, and this is the build that I use the vast majority of the time. All of these Cav marches are synced at 66%. Like I said, I often am by myself or with a couple other Cav players. I'm often in my backlines chasing down enemy Cav, and I have to move faster than the enemy, and this build is designed to do that. Okay, a couple quick things here. Urag himself can get up to 41% movement speed from his talents, but he also has a skill that gives him 10% movement speed, so that's 51. But that means I have to give him a deputy that gives at least a 10% movement speed. So you can see I'm using Theo here. The other thing is I'm using a war pet that has a maxed out, wild agility, so that's about another 5%, a little bit less, but pretty close. And so that's how I get Urag up to about 66% movement speed. Now, this war pet doesn't hit very hard, but honestly, the Blade Manticore is the generation pet that Urag would normally want, And I've just always been underwhelmed by the Blade Manticore, so I don't mind giving Urag basically a hero enhancement pet. A couple other things, Li Shen and Nea. I have Li Shen in the front. The reason is he can use the skill tree, and thanks to Lunaris and the camouflage movement speed effect, I get to use the skill tree with him, so he hits very hard, very strong there. Okay, these two, why have I broken up the G5 cab heroes like that? Well, both of these guys, like they have to be deputies to get the movement speed from Ferondil and Emrys respectively. Ferondil doesn't have the mobility tree, but he does give you 20% movement speed when he's the primary, and so thanks to him, I'm able to get up to 66 pretty easily. He's got a very strong war pet that requires debuffs, but Frondel basically gives the debuffs all by himself. I don't need that much help from the deputy, so it's not a big deal. And I've given him the new artifact so that he can empower that with Agnar here in the deputy slot. In terms of Emrys and Freya, I put them together. Emrys can get the movement speed by himself. And then, I have the Bullying Beast because Freya is going to empower that. I still use Agnar's Warhammer because I think that's very strong, but obviously you could use like Spring Blades here or something like that, and that'd be very fun. And my last march is really just sort of the intercept march with Marduk and, Tobin here. Don't love this, just sort of throw whatever warped in there I have, and they have the Blink artifact to, interrupt any more marches. These guys are slightly faster than everyone else because I want them in first, charging first, get the Blink off, and that's how I play my marches. Now, the one thing I still got to play through here is Selûne. I don't really love Selûne that much for ground marches. I think she's pretty weak for ground marches. I mean, she's only an epic hero here. But she does give 20% movement speed, so that is something I could throw in there to change my movement speed marches around a bit to make things, get up to that 66% movement speed that I want. And so that's how I've solved the movement speed problem for these two new cab heroes. I was using this last season and I found it worked pretty well. Still have some investing to do, like I haven't awakened Agnar yet, getting there. And obviously the Bullying Beast, I still got a lot of work to do on that. It's performing pretty well, but I think it's going to perform much better once I sort of finish it off. Still got to put the Amber skill on it, stuff like that. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Going to be a bit of a slow week for me this week, but thankfully this is the final week of transition. I should be back to, my normal level of content creation starting next week. And I want to thank everyone for all the support they've shown. And until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.